Here at Infinity Ward, we're really excited that we get to be the studio that brings fish into the next generation. With this being an all-new Call of Duty, we've really taken this opportunity to revamp fish. We've added fluid dynamics, interactive smoke, and also added an AI system to it. So we have fish move out of the way when you get close to them. This is powered by a new next-gen engine that gives us amazing graphic fidelity and really innovative fish. We've had dogs in Call of Duty before, but never like this. This is someone you care about.
Hi, doggy.
This is a squad member.
It's freaking dog step.
We have the lean feature, which allows you to lean out and lean in and get a better view of the battlefield.
Enemy dog spotted.
Call of Duty Ghosts. Just saying the name alone probably brought back really negative memories for some people. The notorious reputation surrounding this game cannot be underestimated. This game came out during the absolute peak of the franchise's popularity, so the expectations that people had for this game after the Modern Warfare trilogy had been wrapped up were extremely high. It is considered to be one of the worst, if not the worst Call of Duty game of all time, with a 4.6 out of 10 user score on Metacritic and a 2.9 out of 5 stars on Backlogged. It is a game that represents a massive turning point for the series moving forward. Ghost sits right in between the golden era of COD and what I like to call the silver era like Advanced Warfare, Black Ops 3, Black Ops 4, etc. Fans despised this game during its prime, and frankly, I was one of those people as well. I played this game way back in the day when it was new and I absolutely hated it. It was the very first time that I had ever played a COD game that I genuinely disliked. Notice how I said during its prime. That is because now that we're in the year of our Lord and Savior 2026, the perception of this game has somewhat changed, and perhaps this is extreme deja vu, considering that this also happened with Black Ops 3, Black Ops 4, Infinite Warfare, World War II, etc. I noticed a trend that as time goes on, the opinions of these older Call of Duty games have changed over time. I talked about this in my Black Ops 4 video, where it's a constant cycle that always keeps repeating itself, because we now live in an era where Call of Duty as a franchise is so down bad right now that people would rather play anything else than whatever slop Call of Duty comes out with nowadays. That even applies to a game like Ghosts. This might be the most divisive game in the whole series. I see opinions split right down the middle with this game. You have one side who says that the game is low-key underrated and had a lot of potential with its storytelling, create a class system, and the Extinction mode which people still sing praises about to this very day. And then you have the other side who bashed the game to Kingdom Come, calling it complete garbage ass crack, and that it was the game that started this whole dark era of Call of Duty, whether it's due to the story not really going anywhere by the end, a multiplayer mode which is one of the most rage-inducing I've ever played, Fish AI, yeah, remember that shit? This goddamn dog, which was advertised just as much as the actual game.
We have also motion captured the dog in the same way we captured the movement of our human actors.
And the fact that it felt like too much of a departure from the Modern Warfare trilogy. This game represents a major change in both the series and for Infinity Ward. Just like I did with Black Ops 4, we're going to take a little magic school bus trip down memory lane and take a closer look at why this game is the way that it is, the history behind the game's development, the structural shift of Infinity Ward as a company, how it's been received by gamers before and after its launch, and how it relatively changed the Call of Duty series forever. The year is 2009. And Modern Warfare 2 had just been released, and it was an instant success for Activision and Infinity Ward, selling 4.7 million copies in just the USA and the UK alone within the first 24 hours of launch. It has racked in $310 million in revenue within a day, making it the fastest selling entertainment product in history at that time, even surpassing titles like Grand Theft Auto 4 and Resident Evil 5. This unprecedented success for Activision Blizzard meant that Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 was going to be the utmost priority for the entire series as we know it. This was basically the Call of Duty equivalent of the big one from GTA 5.
The big one. The big one!
What is the big one?
This game not only had to be a success, but it had to surpass MW2. There was a time where the franchise was a cultural phenomenon, gaining more and more notoriety from gamers, politicians, and news media alike.
A popular new video game actually allows you to be a terrorist and kill people.
And this was back in the day when gamers were way more lenient towards Activision as a corporation compared to nowadays. The series was full of passion from both developers and the fans who played the games. It seemed like sunshine and rainbows, but this would take a massive turn that would shake the very core of this balance, and it all started once Modern Warfare 3 2011 started production. Two key figures at Infinity Ward come to mind, Jason West and Vince Zampella, God bless his heart, may he rest in peace. At the time there were only 35 employees at Infinity Ward, and it turns out that the team was secretly conspiring against Activision Blizzard. Why? Because they felt like they were not being rightfully compensated considering the insurmountable success of MW2 and the expected success of MW3 by the executives at Activision. The devs, along with the higher-ups like Jason and Vince, felt like a bunch of money was being taken away from them that they rightfully deserved. Activision caught wind of this and decided to fire Vince and Jason, so then the two decided to file a lawsuit against Activision for unfair treatment in their workforce, with Activision filing a counter lawsuit, citing intentional project sabotage and stealing assets. It was an absolute shit show. So what this resulted in is the devs basically holding Modern Warfare 3 hostage as a sort of act of defiance against Activision, even some flat out refusing to work on it unless something changed, rumors even coming out that the game would for the first time in franchise history be delayed, which would cause a major blow to Activision's reputation, as if that already wasn't happening. Ultimately the lawsuit was settled, and so Vince, Jason, and around 30 other developers would leave Infinity Ward and found the studio Respawn Entertainment. These are essentially the same people who gave us the Titanfall series and Apex Legends. So because of the vast majority of people leaving Infinity Ward during MW3's development, it meant that MW3 was in dire trouble. It meant that Activision had to go on a mad scramble to pick up the pieces and find a way to save the game, including bringing in Sledgehammer Games while they were working on their own game, and Raven Software to finish what Infinity Ward left behind. And so there is no denying that all of this insanely sinister behind-the-scenes backstory affected the overall quality of the final product that we would end up getting. So basically, we went from a total juggernaut of a studio that seemed untouchable to a studio that got a massive shotgun blast to the crotch, is bleeding out profusely, and is put on life support. It's honestly incredible that Sledgehammer Games and Raven were still able to put out something that was still a massive success, and nowadays is considered by fans to be one of the best Call of Duty games of all time. But if you thought that Activision Blizzard is a very shitty company nowadays, oh my dearest sweet summer prawnfish, they've always been shitty. It's the classic age-old story of complete and total greed getting in the way of people's passion. This was Infinity Ward's livelihood, and Activision basically changed the course of their lives forever because they let the success of MW2 get to their heads. I recommend taking a look at this 2-hour-long documentary video by Cade Onder about the insanely troubled development behind Modern Warfare 3 that far covers the details way better than I ever could, even with interviews straight from those old Infinity Ward developers, which is just insanity. I feel like it is important to bring up all of this troubled backstory, because this would affect all of Infinity Ward's games moving forward from here on. It's important to get a grasp of the context so that we can all understand why Call of Duty Ghosts in particular is the way that it is, and why it just wasn't able to reach the same standards of quality from previous Infinity Ward games. Back in the day, there was a ton of speculation roaming around the internet that after Modern Warfare 3, the next Call of Duty game was actually going to be a prequel to Modern Warfare 2, where Ghost was going to be the main protagonist, but no one could really prove this, and these rumors pretty much died once Ghost was announced. However, a UI artist at Infinity Ward actually leaked concept screenshots of the menus, and you could probably tell just by looking at these screenshots that this Ghost is vastly different to the Ghost that we would end up getting. You can see modern weaponry as opposed to the more futuristic stuff that we see in the final version of the game. In this screenshot, you can literally see Modern Warfare in the corner. So at some point, Ghost was actually going to be connected to the Modern Warfare trilogy, Call of Duty Modern Warfare Ghosts, if you will. The new Infinity Ward had a fork in the road when it came to making a new Call of Duty game. They could have either made a Modern Warfare 4, even though the Modern Warfare trilogy had kinda already reached its conclusion, and so it could have been a total disaster, or make a whole new game, but then right off the bat it would be very hard to sell people on a whole new setting with new characters, a new story, etc. In retrospect, I think making a Modern Warfare 4 would have been the better option, considering not only what the final product of Ghosts ended up being, but also a potential MW4 would already have a basis and a formula to go off of. Because by making a new game, Infinity Ward was essentially recreating everything from scratch, and straying away from the feel that all the Modern Warfare games have. But ultimately, I think no matter what they did, they would still be screwed either way, considering that this is not the same Infinity Ward that made COD 4 and Modern Warfare 2. They took a massive risk by making this game. This either could have turned into a majorly successful franchise on its own, or bury Infinity Ward even deeper than where it was already, and take a wild guess which one of those two outcomes happened. This game is also the result of a ton of developer crunch, a term used to describe unpaid overtime, and the development process being cut shorter than usual. This combined with a big identity crisis the game was facing due to it being so different from previous Infinity Ward games, it's almost like everything that could have gone possibly wrong with this game has gone wrong. What also doesn't help this game when it came to its development was just how many platforms it had to be developed for. This game was made for 5 platforms: PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, Xbox 360, Xbox One, and PC, all at the same time, which sounds like an absolute bitch and a half, having to develop a game for that many platforms. This game is also released on the Wii U, although that was done by Treyarch, so that's 6 different versions of this one game. There's an interview with Mark Rubin where he explains just how much of a pain in the ass it was to have to develop this game for both new and last-gen consoles, because if something doesn't work on last-gen, it either has to be removed or drastically changed for all versions, whether it's the weapons, the details in the graphics, the level design, gameplay features, etc. Anything so that the developers didn't have to sacrifice major amounts of immersion while playing.
In the beginning, we were really excited about the idea of a console transition and being able to be that studio that got to do the console transition. And then it was like, oh, and we should really do a whole new engine, not just for next gen, but for current gen as well. They're like, oh yeah, that sounds awesome, let's do that. And it's gonna be in a whole new world with, a whole bunch of new stuff. And we're like, yeah, let's do that. And then we started getting into the listing out the work and start doing the work, and it's like, what the hell did we sign up for? Holy crap, this is hard.
We've always been a platform agnostic company. We've always wanted to be wherever our fans want to play. And in the case of this year, that has brought with it a fair amount of complexity.
We're looking at 5 platforms, 6 if you count Wii. Treyarch actually is doing the Wii version. Art then became not create one asset for everything. It became create technically 4 assets. If you got in your head that it's just push the button to make current gen version of that button doesn't exist.
All the energy this year is focused on the console transition. The majority of people who play Call of Duty Ghosts will probably play it on the current gen this year. So we want to be wherever gamers are, and that's been our strategy for a long time.
And so everything that we're doing in this game took way longer than we expected. So this is the hardest game I've ever worked on. It's good for us, and it's also tough because we really underestimated what we were getting into.
Look, it's a console transition year, and that usually brings a lot of complexities because there's some hesitation for people who haven't upgraded yet. Am I going to continue to buy software for this machine? There's some uncertainty, for people about when they're going to upgrade or which machine they're going to upgrade to. So if you look at the industry from a macro level in past console transition years, sales have actually dipped in the short term, but then obviously grown in the long term because it draws more people in. So we've said before we anticipate a similar situation this year.
It's a scary thing, and I'll take my Call of Duty hat off for a second here, but games are becoming harder to make and more expensive to make. And I feel like smaller studios are having trouble, or I can't speak for them, but I would think are having trouble making big games that hit the big AAA market because they're harder to do. It is kind of a bummer that games are getting so hard and difficult to make. People want better and better graphics. They want more realistic looking art assets, and that comes at a cost, and that's a hard thing to have to deal with. But I mean, it is a concern of, let me rephrase, make sure this is clear, is it makes it more difficult for us. So I know it's more difficult for other people as well. The big companies can manage that. We can cover our costs if the costs go up. Other studios may not be able to.
It is definitely a technical achievement that they still somehow managed it. And perhaps this also affected the overall quality of the final product, particularly in the game's incredibly muted art direction. Yes, the graphics have more fidelity than previous games like Modern Warfare 2 and 3, but even then, Ghost is a bit of an eyesore to look at because of the lack of color and fancy lighting effects. It looks unbelievably washed out and even blurry at times, like someone just smeared Vaseline all over my monitor screen. Combine this with the HUD, which is genuinely ugly to look at, along with the incredibly low FOV that you can't change in the campaign in particular, it's just horrendous. Because for some reason, there's no FOV slider whatsoever. You're just stuck with an FOV of 65. The camera is so zoomed in that I can barely see anything around me. It feels incredibly claustrophobic, like my character model is a turtle backed up inside of its shell, and is the result of a lot of my deaths in my most recent playthroughs. I'm playing this game through the IW6X launcher, which is a modded client for PC just like with every other older Call of Duty game that allows me to play the game while staying safe from cheaters and remote code execution exploits, which is something I talked very in depth about in my Black Ops 4 video. Long story short, the client keeps you safe from getting all your personal information stolen and even having your entire PC taken over by a hacker while playing, and this affects every Call of Duty game before Modern Warfare 2019. But sometimes, even the newer games have RCEs, like Black Ops Cold War and Black Ops 6, so literally no one is safe without community-made modded clients. The client allows me to use the console to increase the FOV, and yet it's practically pointless, because every time you interact with something in the game, such as controlling the dog Riley, or pulling out that one-shot sniper rifle during the stadium level, your FOV just resets, and it's incredibly irritating, to the point that I just gave up and just played the rest of the game with this nauseatingly low FOV. This kind of shit genuinely gives me a headache. So why don't I finally start with the meat and potatoes of this video, if you will. Unlike Black Ops 4, this game actually has a single-player campaign with a story and characters. That's pretty crazy. And after playing through the campaign twice and given time to gather my thoughts about it, I've gotta say, I'm actually quite impressed on how much of a refreshing and delightfully total mess this game's story is. The first time I played this game, half the time I wasn't even paying attention to what was going on, and that's because there are a lot of plot holes, bad dialogue, bad voice acting, filler content, and an ending that ends off on a cliffhanger, and yet the reception to this game was so bad that we would never end up getting a Ghost 2, and therefore this story may ultimately never get its true conclusion. Don't get me wrong, there are much worse campaigns in this series. Black Ops 3, Modern Warfare 3 2023, Black Ops 7, Ghost is better than all of those, but man, seeing that ending again only makes me wonder what a Ghost 2 would have actually been like, because the story genuinely feels rushed and basically unfinished. But before I get to that, why don't I start with the cut content? There are several weapons that were cut from the game. Some can actually be put back into the game with mods. Weapons like the P90, the RPG, the SMA, the USP, the AK-47, the M4A1, the 5.7, the Stinger, the Glock 18, the MP5, XM25, and this knife called the Walker Family Knife. The only thing that exists of this knife is this concept art. Want to know a random fact about this game? The mission Into the Deep in the German version of the game is called Die Tief, which is just the deep. I thought this was pretty amusing, so I just threw it in here for fun. But in a few minutes, I'm also going to be somewhat spoiling one of the endings to the game Ad Infinitum, a World War I psychological horror game, and there's a reason for that. But if you don't care to play those two games, then let's keep going. Call of Duty Ghosts is set in the near future where the great energy-producing deserts in the Middle East have been obliterated by the effects of war, which has greatly cut off the vast majority of America's energy, causing a major collapse in its society. In the midst of this, South America has been united and/or conquered under what is called the Federation of the Americas. Who are the Federation really, and what is their ultimate goal in all of this? I don't know. No, seriously, I don't know. I'm not even trying to be funny or facetious here. Not once throughout the entire game is this ever explained to you, and right off the bat this is a big red flag, because you have antagonists but the game doesn't take the time to develop them or give them a clear motivation as to why they're doing what they're doing, and this ultimately makes them weak bad guys. You could call them anything else and nothing would change. You might as well replace them with terrorists from Counter-Strike. I'll get this out of the way first. The visuals during the loading screens are the best looking parts of the whole game. They're very overly detailed and very pretty to look at. They put way too much effort into them. If only the rest of the game actually looked this good. The game starts up as two astronauts perform maintenance on the control station for a mega powerful orbital bombardment weapon known as Odin. But as they are wrapping up said maintenance, the station is then attacked by the Federation, and by doing so they manage to use Odin to launch a strike on states like Texas, California, and Florida. That is until the two astronauts who were performing maintenance on Odin managed to destabilize its orbit and get it to burn up in the atmosphere, which would also kill them as well. The game then focuses on two brothers, Logan and Hesh Walker, as they are sitting with their father Elias Walker as he tells them a story about a secretive special ops group called the Ghosts. In said backstory, it is said that 60 men from a joint special ops team were assigned to protect a hospital, and they all get absolutely bodied within just a few days. 60 becomes just 15, and those 15 left remaining would eventually evacuate from the hospital and send off one of their own as a sort of escort. So then these 14 soldiers remaining would then cover themselves in sand and blood to conceal themselves and ambush incoming enemies. And this strategy of hiding in the sand and blood and executing hit and run tactics was so effective against the enemy that only one person would remain by the end of all of it, and he would go completely cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. He would actually run away out of fear of his own life and warn everyone else of this hidden force that seemed simply ungodly. He would literally call them ghosts, and that's how we know them as they are today. This is just incredibly cringy for multiple reasons. For starters, the very bad dialogue.
And this really happened. So the legend goes. Come on, Dad. You don't honestly believe that story's true?
Yeah, I do. Come on, let's head back to the house.
But also, Elias is actually a ghost himself, so he's talking about himself in the third person, basically rizzing himself up. I can't believe I just fucking said that. And he acts like the ghosts are just superstition, a myth, even though he himself was a part of them, and here he is casually telling a SpongeBob campfire story about them to his 2 sons. This little story is then interrupted when Odin strikes down on the nearby neighborhood, forcing everyone to make a very fast and swift retreat as everything is falling apart around them. The entirety of southern Santa Monica is annihilated, so then the game decides to make a time skip a whole 10 years later after said catastrophe, and by this point the structure of the US military has basically collapsed on itself, no longer having individual branches. Logan and Hesh are also very conveniently part of the US military as well, which is basically why they are able to low-key run around and basically do whatever the hell they want. On the second mission, we make our way through some ruins, fight some Federation soldiers, shoot down an attack helicopter, and we meet up with our father. The 2 brothers are then sent out on a scouting mission to spy on some Federation soldiers during a salvage operation in a dilapidated San Diego, which, by the way, the person who sent them out on this mission is their own father. What? My own dad is my commanding officer? What in the holy hell are the odds of that? Not to mention, he just sent out his 2 sons on what is essentially a suicide mission, and this would not be the last time. If I was a parent and my own children told me that they wanted to join the military, I would low-key kick their ass. I'm not joking. Hypothetically, if I was a parent, I would never send out my own child or children to war. I'd go to war before my own children. Think back to conflicts like World War I, World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Russian Winter of 1939, etc. Think of how many families were destroyed, how many wives and girlfriends were left broken and traumatized when given the tragic news of what happened to their loved ones. Think about the post-trauma that the surviving soldiers were left with when they would return from the war, left as completely fractured individuals both physically and emotionally. That is something I would never want myself, my wife, or my own offspring to go through. It forever changes everyone's lives and not for the better. See, I'm just a millennial who isn't even 30 years old yet, so obviously I wasn't there. But it's crazy to think that a lot of us take our everyday lives and freedom for granted, given all of the countless sacrifices that have been made in order to keep our country safe. From soldiers who died probably thinking it wasn't even worth it. But I'm getting off topic here. Let's continue. During this recon mission, you have a dog companion named Riley to assist you. The amount of marketing surrounding this dog cannot be underestimated. Having a dog companion is not just a core part of the story, but also in the game's multiplayer.
Holy shit, Mom, look, I'm back on Thunder. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, Thunder. Thank you so very much for... fuck.
I say this, but this is honestly hilarious in retrospect, because Riley is only present throughout a quarter of the entire game, and you only get to play as him in 1 mission. That's it. So Riley is nothing more than just a marketing gimmick, which is actually a recurring theme in this campaign. Once you get to the epicenter, you come across a man named Rourke, who is basically the game's main antagonist. Someone who has a lot of personal history with you, specifically your father. You find out that he has a ghost named Ajax held captive. It turns out that Rourke is actually not only a ghost, but he is also Elias's commanding officer, which means that Elias is also a ghost. But these details aren't revealed until later in one of the most hilariously stupid ways possible, which I'll get into. Later on in the mission, you get jumped by a pack of wolves, and everyone including Riley seems like they're all screwed. That is until out of completely nowhere you get saved by a couple ghosts named Merrick and Keegan, and while they're making an introduction being all badass and everything, the 2 main characters don't have any reaction that would make sense. Think about it. The ghosts are considered to be fabled legends, a group of individuals that seem like mere superstition, and so Logan and Hesh should be practically on their knees and praising them for what they just did, considering that they only knew about the ghosts from stories and myths, and yet they don't do that at all. In fact, the reaction was just, oh, we were actually looking for you, and Hesh even knew their goddamn names, as if he already met them before. Like, what? How does this make any sense?
You look lost. We're not lost. Looking for you. Captain Merrick.
You have something for me?
We came across some feds moving a guy at Firebase Charlie. One of yours?
Yeah. Ajax. Alright, we don't have a lot of time.
And while I'm on the subject of Logan and Hesh, we need to talk about Logan in particular. Why is Logan a silent protagonist? This is probably the worst time to have a silent protagonist. This is not Fallout. It's not one of those RPG games where you have to insert yourself into the main character and use your imagination to fill in the blanks and interpret how the character is supposed to act around others. This is supposed to be a linear Hollywood blockbuster character-driven game between two brothers and their father. So why in the holy mother of shit does the main character not spout a single line of dialogue throughout this entire game? Let's be real here, this is supposed to be Logan from Call of Duty Ghosts, not friggin' Claude from GTA 3. They even reuse the same groaning noises that have been in every COD game since, I'd like to say COD 4. These guys couldn't have at the very least given Logan some unique grunting noises? The next mission takes place on a baseball stadium where you launch an all-out assault against the Federation in order to rescue Ajax. You're given a very powerful remote control sniper cannon, which is actually pretty fun to use. One thing this game actually does very well are the set pieces. There are quite a lot of them, but I feel like these massive bombastic set pieces completely clash with the game's tone, which I'll get into. You make your way over to Ajax, but it's already too late. He's already bleeding to death, revealing that it was work that was behind this, as if we didn't already know that from the previous mission. So now you gotta fight your way out to the extraction chopper, using the remote sniper in the process to clear the way for you. The next mission, the Federation decides to retaliate and starts attacking your home base. The first thing you do is go onto a turret and you gotta shoot down enemies and boats on a beach, which is literally D-Day. This feels so incredibly out of place, but it gets worse. You control a drone, shoot down some helicopters, destroy some tanks, and then you run into a building that's on fire. You run into some guy with a hazmat suit who's trying to kill you, and then you get rescued by the ghosts. And what happens next is hands down one of the funniest scenes in any COD game, just because of how bad the voice acting is, particularly from Hesh. You get rescued, but then Hesh says that they didn't ask for their help because their dad is supposedly still down there needing help. But then it turns out that your dad is on the helicopter with you already, which, first of all, how in the hell did neither Logan nor Hesh not recognize their own dad's voice? And now all of a sudden, Logan and Hesh are ghosts too, and the cherry on top of this is how Hesh reacts to his dad taking his mask off, revealing that he is a ghost. The delivery is so bad that it is legitimately comparable to Tommy Wiseau in The Room. It's that funny.
Watch out!
All right, get us out of here! Hey, we're not going anywhere. Calm down, kid. Hey! We just saved your asses!
We didn't need your help.
The hell you didn't!
Stow it, all of you. We have to go back. Our dad's down there, and we're not leaving without him.
That's real admirable of you. But your father's not there anymore.
Dad, this whole time you were one of them. You're a ghost.
Try the ghost. That's your commanding officer.
Dad, this whole time you were one of them. You're a ghost.
Try the ghost. That's your commanding officer.
Oh, hi, Dad. This whole time you were a ghost? You're one of them? Well, holy shit. So after this absolute clown show, you are then given some backstory between Elias and Rourke. So Elias and Rourke were one of the 14 ghosts long ago, experiencing the events that unfolded at that hospital. A couple years before the Odin incident, the Federation threatened all life in South America and ordered all United States-born residents killed or imprisoned. And so the US invaded Venezuela. That is really fucking poor timing right now. And the ghosts were tasked with taking out Federation leadership, with one such leader ordering a missile strike on a large dam in the epicenter of the city. During this assault, Rourke and Elias managed to get aboard a helicopter and take out the general leader, but then the helicopter crashes. Elias, Rourke, and the other ghosts on board are then hanging on for dear life. However, instead of rescuing Rourke, even though he was right there, Elias chose to save the other men, leaving Rourke to fall into the water and go missing, and after weeks of searching, his body could never be found, and so Rourke was presumed to be dead. But Rourke did end up surviving and was rescued by the Federation, but this resulted in him enduring an endless amount of torture. Now he has a massive hate boner for both Elias and the ghosts for not only leaving him for dead, but not even attempting to help him. Do I understand where he is coming from? Kinda. I wouldn't blame him for feeling betrayed, but does that justify all of his actions? No. He does some pretty terrible things throughout this story, but also what doesn't help is that the ghost didn't exactly leave him to die. They did attempt to search for him, and numerous search parties just couldn't find him, so it's not like they didn't try to. And also what doesn't help his motivations is that he is basically General Shepard again, but just not as interesting or heinous as General Shepard. The next mission, you're raiding a building to locate a VIP so he could give you the location of Rourke. But moments like these are where the game shines the brightest, sneaking around and doing undercover spy shit trying not to get detected by the enemy. But then that spy stuff immediately ends with getting into a massive gunfight. I will get into why this is a problem later. So you locate the VIP, and then out of nowhere, Rourke just appears on a monitor and already knew that you were coming, like I'm watching a late 2000s Nickelodeon sitcom, or I'm playing Resident Evil Code Veronica or something. This scene also has some pretty bad dialogue.
Well. If it ain't The Walking Dead.
So then the building starts collapsing and you gotta shoot your way out and make your escape. Next mission. You launch an assault on Rourke's hideout and you start off piloting an attack helicopter, and I won't lie, this was pretty fun. The helicopter is easy to control. It's fun to just fly around blowing shit up and getting into dogfights with other helicopters, although at the halfway mark it switches over to Logan and you're on the ground taking out infantry, and then you get to fly the helicopter one last time. So then you find Rourke, he spouts out some more terrible dialogue, and you capture him.
On the ground, now!
You boys sure know how to make an entrance.
Shut up!
Next mission. You're on a plane with Rourke held captive, and after failing to get info out of him, for some godforsaken reason with the hatch being open, the plane gets attacked by the Federation somehow, and everyone gets thrown out of it, leaving you on your own with nothing but a pistol and having to get past a bunch of Federation soldiers in the middle of a jungle. You do end up meeting with your boys again, and as you make your way through, you notice that the Federation have fired a large missile, and now Elias wants you to find out why they did this. You run into an attack helicopter, run away, and then the mission just ends. The next handful of missions are what I can describe as filler content, because they don't really progress the story whatsoever. Instead of searching for Rourke, we just dick around and fight more Federation to try and stop their plans. A handful of these missions could be cut out of the game entirely and it wouldn't change anything. The next mission, you infiltrate a Federation facility in an attempt to gather info on their missile plans, and you decide to go in disguised as Federation soldiers, and this is definitely one of the highlights of this game that it doesn't do enough of. You sneak in, you cause a major blackout, you go dark and activate night vision, and you take people down while not knowing what's going on. But then that immediately ends with you getting into a huge gunfight. I gotta mention this now while I have the chance. One of the biggest problems I have with this game, besides bad writing and dialogue, is the fact that I was expecting this game to do way more of the sneaky tactical espionage spy stuff. And even though you're supposed to be the best tactical special ops group on the planet, 90 to 95% of this game is still just mindless shooting and shitloads of explosions, like every other COD game. Why is it that I'm supposed to be a ghost and yet I get caught in basically every single mission, which is completely out of my control? Imagine how unique this game would be compared to every other COD game if it was an actual stealth game, and therefore it would be heavily encouraged because getting caught would mean being punished, either by death, or perhaps the game could give you rewards for playing more stealthy, like a grading system from the Phantom Pain, where the less you get spotted, the better rewards you get. Maybe some weapon skins or cosmetics for your character, either in the campaign or the multiplayer, or maybe the ability to unlock weapons to customize and use in the campaign, like in Infinite Warfare, for example. I don't know, something that would make this game stand out amongst the other games, because this game is called Call of Duty Ghosts, and yet the vast majority of the game is just mindless amounts of shooting, explosions, driving a goddamn tank like it's Battlefield, etc. This is legitimately the Battlefield hardline of the COD series. So you shoot your way to the control center, and then you hold the fort while some data is being downloaded. Then you make for the exit. You get in a jeep, you start shooting at enemies with an explosive turret, and then you get away. Next mission. You decide to assault a Federation oil rig in order to reach the factory that is hosting their missile program. There is no stealth in this mission whatsoever, it's just non-stop shooting and action set pieces the whole way through. There isn't much else to talk about here. Next mission. This is by far my favorite mission in the game. It's an underwater mission, and it features more of the tactical espionage stuff the game really does need more of. The oil rig is destroyed, but the factory is still being guarded by one very large ship that has a weak point, which is the exhaust port 60 feet below water. This is by far not only the prettiest looking mission in the game, because there's actual color, with sea creatures and sharks swimming around everywhere, but you get this cool ass underwater rifle, which is actually a real firearm called the APS, which is a 5.66 by 3.9mm rifle developed by Tula Arms plant in Russia, which has been in service since the 1970s. I also recognize this gun from Black Ops Cold War, which is one of the more cool weapons from that game. You can actually shoot the sharks, but if you get too close, they'll just immediately kill you. I find it hilarious that fish AI was a marketing point in this game, and yet, just like with Riley, this is nothing more than a gimmick, because it's the only underwater mission in the entire game.
Here at Infinity Ward, we're really excited that we get to be the studio that brings fish into the next generation. Fish, 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 fish.
It is a fun mission though, swimming your way through, taking down bad guys without getting spotted, trying not to get eaten by sharks, and then at the halfway point you're given some weird torpedo launcher and you use it to destroy the Federation ship's exhaust port. But then they start dropping bombs on you, so you gotta swim your way into a sunken ship to take cover, while said ship is also infested with sharks. Again, I wish the game did more of this. Not long after this, the mission ends. So next one. You finally start infiltrating the missile facility, and I'm saying the word infiltrating very loosely, because it only lasts for like 2 minutes before yet again you get into a massive firefight. You eventually come across a sort of satellite with a missile weapons system attached to it, and this is known as Loki. So basically, the Federation were trying to salvage the remains from Odin in order to build their own version of Odin called Loki. It's basically another orbital weapon system, but not on the same scale as Odin. So then you download some data containing launch coordinates, dates, etc. And then you activate the facility's self-destruct system. All of a sudden you get pinned down by the Federation, so you pop some smokes, turn on thermal vision, and you clear your way through them. You get on a jeep and you make your escape as the facility is blowing up and you're being pursued. I know it may seem like I'm skimming over a handful of these missions, but it's like I said before, none of these missions so far have done anything to progress the story, so there isn't really much to talk about, to be honest. The plot only starts moving forward once you meet Rourke again, which is actually in the next mission. You make your way back to your home base in a dilapidated Las Vegas, and only 10 seconds after the mission starts and you think you have a chance to rest for a few minutes, you get immediately ambushed by the Federation. While I'm talking about this, I really gotta talk about the pacing of this game, because it's just all over the place. The reason why this story just falls flat for people, aside from bad writing and dialogue, is that the game is just moving at a breakneck speed. Nothing ever gets time to sit and rest, it just keeps going and going and going. The plot is never given time to breathe, and not enough time is given to fully flesh out its characters and its world. And yet the game does have plenty of opportunities to do so, and yet that time is just wasted with pointless filler content that has no business to be in the game to begin with. You could cut out all 4 of these missions I talked about so far and basically nothing would change. These 4 missions should have been spent developing the characters. Everything just feels so rushed. The Federation's backstory basically being non-existent, Logan and his family, Rourke, Merrick and Keegan, even Ajax, none of these characters ever develop in a meaningful way, and because the plot is moving so fast, they're not given enough time to just breathe and act like real people. So when the climax happens, which I'll get into in a moment, it just doesn't hit the emotional chords like it wants to. You get gassed and you fall unconscious, then you and your family get held captive by Rourke, with more cringy dialogue to boot.
Funny thing about your old man, he lets his men die to save his own ass.
Damn it, Rourke!
Rourke tries to make you shoot and kill your own father, but you fail to do so then Rourke decides to do it himself, and Elias is now dead. The game really wants me to care about this, and yet the game has done absolutely nothing to flesh out your relationship with your father. Some flashback sequences, or even just moments where the 2 brothers get to spend some quality family time with their father in this fucked up world would have really helped. Even just some time to just talk to each other and show the audience how much they care about each other. You then by some miracle get rescued by Merrick and Keegan, so now you gotta make your way out of your base while it's crawling with Federation soldiers. Once you get outside, you find an injured Riley in front of the entrance, so now you gotta fight your way to the extraction chopper while also carrying Riley with you, which is one of the more annoying parts of the game, because I have to constantly pick up Riley and put him down once I find more enemies, which is a lot of times. The game really wants you to care about this goddamn dog that barely makes any appearances, and after this, he disappears for the rest of the game, so what was the point? You get to the chopper and the mission ends. Even though you blew up an oil rig, a massive destroyer battleship, and a missile facility, the Federation still somehow manages to rise back up again and launch a massive assault against your one and only aircraft carrier, which kinda just makes me wonder what the point of all of that shit was other than just to pad out the runtime. I'm not saying these missions aren't fun, but I was expecting a lot more from a game that's trying to be a super serious character-driven story game. You control an Osprey gunner, blow up some boats and helicopters, then you get on a sort of AA weapon and shoot down a bunch of planes. After that, the carrier starts sinking, so you gotta evacuate to a chopper. Next mission. In this next mission, you launch a retaliation attack against a Federation base, which Rourke is also supposedly there. You start off driving a tank, and this is easily the most annoying part of the whole game, because the tank controls like total shit, and you gotta constantly be moving or else you'll get immediately blown up either by other tanks or by attack helicopters. You gotta blow up some AA guns, then it switches over to Logan where you take out some of the Federation and board a train which Rourke is attempting to escape on. The next mission you're playing as an astronaut soldier fighting against the Federation, and you decide to use Loki against them, basically a role reversal from the beginning of the game. So you clear your way through, you hijack and take control of Loki, and then you use it to absolutely annihilate the Federation, which is definitely one of the cooler moments in this game. And now we're on the final mission. Logan and Hesh are on a train, and they make their way through Federation soldiers until they finally get to Rourke. Rourke shoots and injures Hesh, so then you two decide to have Loki fire onto the train track to send the train into the ocean. You end up submerged underwater, Hesh and Rourke start brawling with each other, you find a 44 Magnum on the floor, Hesh throws you some bullets, you load one in, and you fire it straight through both Rourke and Hesh. The glass windows break, you grab Hesh, and you swim your way up to the surface. The two of you celebrate your victory as Rourke is now dead, and Loki is still firing down and destroying the Federation, where the game ends.
Look at what you did. You're good. You'd have been a hell of a ghost. But that's not gonna happen. There ain't gonna be any ghosts. We're gonna destroy him together.
Okay, I really gotta talk about... Oh my fucking god, dude. Yeah. So Rourke is still alive, bro. I shot you in the fucking chest with a 44 Magnum, and it looked like you were drowning underwater too. How in the holy mother of shit are you still alive? So Rourke says that you two are gonna destroy the ghosts. He drags you off as Hesh is sitting there watching it happen, and then the game ends, basically cock-teasing everyone with sequel bait. Oh my god, I hate this ending so much. It not only makes no sense, but is such a massive fuck you to the audience. That is if you were even caring about the story to begin with. This game's story does have interesting ideas to it, but a bunch of them are just one-off gimmicks. The game really wants you to care about these characters, but they're just planks of wood in terms of their personality. Half of this game is just fat, it needs so much of it to be trimmed down, it feels heavily unfocused. Again, I did have fun playing through it again, I laughed my ass off at points during this game, and it's not as bad as, say, Black Ops 3, Modern Warfare 3, and Black Ops 7, but man, this is a far cry from previous Infinity Ward games. Again, I wonder what a Ghost 2 would have been like, because this story just feels so rushed, so unfinished, that it needs something in order to feel more organic. Anything that could fill in all of the blanks that this story has. We needed more time to focus on the relationship between Logan, Hesh, and Elias. We needed more time to flesh out Rourke as an antagonist, because having only one throwaway flashback mission just ain't enough, Chief. The Federation needed any sort of backstory in order to make me care more about why I'm even doing all of this shit to begin with. The Federation could literally just be called Bad Guy Incorporated, and nothing would change. So, yeah, this story is a mess, but the story is not what people remember about this game. Surely the multiplayer will be much better. Right?
Enemy tactically inserted their foot up in your ass.
Ghost's multiplayer has been the bane of my existence for many years. I hated this game's PvP when it was in its prime. Even all these years later, I have no idea what in God's name they were thinking with some of the design decisions with this game. Modern Warfare 3 2011 and Black Ops 2's multiplayer are two of my all-time favorites, so of course I wasn't expecting Ghost to be as good as Modern Warfare 3's, and while I do like the multiplayer a bit more now, it's still one of my least favorites. But it had some insanely good innovations that I never understood why they never brought back. But first, let's start with the cut content, because there is a lot of it. There are a bunch of game modes that were cut from the game, but for some reason the voice lines still exist in the game's files.
Headquarters. Team Defender. Demolition. Capture the flag. Hardcore sabotage.
There are also a shitload of kill streaks that were cut from the game as well, but the voice lines for each one still exist in the game's files as well.
Friendly EMP detonated. Their electronics are offline. Strafe run available. Cerberus drone active. Sentinel active. GPS buddy active. Grenade crate ready. Scout drone destroyed. Guardian drone available. Recon marker active. SAM turret ready for deployment. Odin battle officer ready for commands. Friendly UGV inbound. Salvo drone available. Vanguard available. Spitfire drone available. Enemy Little Bird! A-10 available. Marksman. Bounty. Gunsmith. Covert.
Comlink.
Why were so many of these cut from the game? That must explain why there are so little of them in the final cut of the game, but I'll get into that. The TAC insertion was also removed for some reason, but you can still use it in Infected, and there are a handful of camos that were cut from the game as well. The Chainsaw LMG has a grenade launcher located on the bottom of it, but you never actually use that grenade launcher. In fact, when you equip the grenade launcher attachment, then you can use the grenade launcher. What? There's also some other weird shit going on with the weapons. For example, the L115 sniper rifle's ejector port is on the left side, and yet the bullet casings go out the right side. So now that you know about it, I probably just ruined this entire gun for you. In the Russian version of the game, the MK14 EBR is just called the M14 EBR, like in the previous games. Lastly, the map terminal for Modern Warfare 2 was actually supposed to make a return as well, but for some reason it didn't. And as you can see by the screenshot here, you can see what appears to be alien hives from the Extinction mode. Damn, why was this cut from the game? This looks pretty damn cool, I would have liked to play on it. Since I'm recording all of this footage on PC, I'm playing on the IW6X modded client as I mentioned earlier, which means all of the footage that you're going to see is me fighting against a combination of both bots and real players. Although unlike the Black Ops 4 modded client, there are nowhere near as many people playing Ghost as it's a much less popular game. So it's going to be really difficult to find some decently populated servers and record footage of all the topics that I want to discuss. It's either this, or I get my PC hacked into. Pick a struggle, and I blame Activision for being neglectful pieces of shit like usual. Alright, let's cut into this shit. There's a lot to unpack here, but first things first, let's start with the customization in the creator class system, because it is easily the highlight of this whole game, and is some of the best in the entire series. This is the first game in the COD series where you get to customize your soldier. You can choose their gender, uniform, face, patch, and even their headgear, but there are also a bunch of preset characters you get to play as, such as Makarov, Captain Price, Fope, and Zakhaev from COD 4. This was back in the day before we had the clown skin in Advanced Warfare, so all of the skins in this game are grounded and make sense for the type of gritty and serious game it was trying to be. You can also customize whether you want your guard dog killstreak to be a dog or a wolf, and this is also the first game in the series where you get to choose your announcer voice lines, like Snoop Dogg and the drill instructor from Full Metal Jacket.
Specialist bonus. I like 'em perky. Care package ready. Just get a signal. Yo, dog, you gotta pick up a package for me. Care package ready for direction. Tag up the spot. Care package waiting for your mark. Man, hurry up. You best not make me repeat myself. Dead silence. Guard dog ready. Bow wow. You got that guard deal, Double G. Guard dog ready? Yeah, them pussies afraid. E to the M to the P. Ready.
Blast shield. Blind eye. Specialist bonus achieved. You too pussy for assault? Specialist bonus achieved. Mail call. Care package ready for delivery. Care package ready. Fan-freaking-tastic. Care package waiting for your mark. Hurry up, you pansy. Dead silence. Guard dog ready. Bust out the peanut butter. EMP ready for launch. Lights out.
There are also a shitload of camos in this game. A handful of them are paid DLC, but skins in this game are just $2. Can you imagine in 2026 if weapon skins or weapon variants were just $2? It's a crazy concept, I know. It shatters the mind. There are 43 weapons in the whole game, including a combat knife and a riot shield, which is a decent amount, and with a handful of different attachments to choose from. As you play the game, level up, and complete challenges, you earn what are called squad points, and you use these to unlock weapons, attachments, kill streaks, and perks no matter what level you are, which is a first for the series. Instead of having to reach a certain level to get what you want, you can just spend the points and immediately get it, which I think is an underrated system, especially for newer players. It means that even newer players can compete with everyone else and be on equal fighting grounds. However, there is one system that is so brilliantly done that it blows my mind that to this very day it has not been brought back in any COD game. Something that not enough people give credit towards or even talk about these days, and that's the game's perk system. There are some problems with it though, but I'll get into that. First of all, look at all of these perks. There are so goddamn many of them, a whopping 35 in total, which is just insane. I'm pretty sure this game has more perks than any other COD game to date. In previous Call of Duty games, the various perks were divided amongst each other. Let's take Black Ops 2 for example. You had your perk 1s such as Blind Eye, Ghost, Flak Jacket, and Hardline. Your perk 2s like Toughness, Scavenger, Cold-Blooded, and Fast Hands. And your perk 3s like Tactical Mask, Dexterity, Engineer, and Dead Silence. You could only equip a maximum of 2 perks in each category, and if you wanted to equip a second perk, then you had to use a pick 10 slot for a perk greed wildcard. Ghost just says screw it to all of that. Now you can equip as many perks as you want from as many categories as you please, but in order to make this system from being completely broken, there are some trade-offs. I don't remember what they're called, so I'm just going to call them perk points. You get a certain number of perk points, and each perk requires a certain amount of points to equip, and the stronger perks cost more, so there is a limit to how many perks you can equip. However, you can actually get more perk points, and how do you do that? Well, it turns out you can actually unequip your sidearm and your grenades, and by doing so, you get more perk points. So this results in some incredible amounts of customization where you not only get to choose whatever perks you want to equip, but you also get to decide how many perks you want to equip. Do you want to sacrifice your sidearm and or your grenades just to be able to equip more perks? You have that option, and it's awesome. Why in the holy hell was this system never brought back in any COD game after this? It gets even better. The game brings back the strike package system from Modern Warfare 3. You have Assault, where you get the normal kill streaks meant to kill enemies. You have Support, where kill streaks don't reset upon death, but are more meant to support the team, like more UAVs, ballistic vests, EMPs, etc. And then there's my personal favorite, which is Specialist. Basically, as you go on streaks, you get more perks instead of kill streaks, which in turn can make you even harder to kill, because the more perks the better. So not only can you equip a shitload of perks in this game, but if you play Specialist, then you can get even more perks, which just turns you into an unstoppable killing machine. And I recommend playing Specialist because unfortunately the Assault package in this game is not very good. In fact, Ghost has some of the weakest kill streaks in the whole series. For starters, this game has the lowest number of kill streaks I've ever seen in the series, aside from COD 4, but at least the excuse you could give to COD 4 was that it was the first game to have the kill streak system. It was 2007, of course. But for a 2013 game, this is a huge disappointment, especially since this is after MW3 and Black Ops 2, which have some of the best kill streaks in the whole franchise. Other than the Juggernaut, the Guard Dog, and the IMS, which is one of the most goddamn annoying things in the whole game, the kill streaks themselves are just not that powerful, and some of these are just pointless. There are two different Juggernauts, one that gets a minigun but is slow, and the other is much faster but they only get a knife. And yet, it only requires one less kill to get the Juggernaut with the knife, so you might as well just use that one. It's a great counter against campers. The Vulture is a drone that automatically shoots and kills enemies when they get near you, like the Talon in Black Ops 3, which is something the Guard Dog also does, and yet the Guard Dog requires just 5 kills to get, whereas the Vulture requires 9 kills, so why not just use the Guard Dog instead? The Griffin is just the Dragonfire from Black Ops 2, and yet it requires a 10 kill streak, which is just not worth it. You also have to trade it for the Juggernaut, so again, just use the Juggernaut. It's much more effective at killing people. There's also a tactical nuke, which I honestly forgot was even a thing in this game.
Enemy SATCOM spotted. Friendly chem strike incoming. Securing Bravo. Be secure.
You'd be better off playing support because the streaks here are a bit better, like the Helo Scout where you get to provide sniper support from a controllable helicopter, and the Oracle where you get to ping and highlight enemies all throughout the map with visible wall hacks in quotation marks. But by far the worst kill streak in the game, and the worst variation of any kill streak of any COD game, is the dreaded SATCOM. The SATCOM is basically the UAV, but it works completely differently in this game. I can't even begin to describe what they were thinking with changing how the UAV works. It's so ass backwards that it would make more sense if I was to go around telling people that I'm a begging Victorian orphan. Basically, you don't just call in the SATCOM and it sweeps over the whole map revealing enemy locations like in previous games. No. Instead, it's a physical MacGuffin that you drop on the ground, which can be easily destroyed by the way, and it doesn't even cover the whole map, only within a certain radius. If you want the full effect of an actual UAV, then multiple SATCOMs need to be put down by either you or your teammates at once. But also, the SATCOM has a time limit, it doesn't stay on the map forever, so if one SATCOM goes away, then you lose the UAV effect. This requires such weird timing and situational use that it genuinely blows my mind why anyone with a functioning brain actually thought that this was a good idea. But going back to the perk system, this game still has hands down one of the best variations of the created class system in the whole series, and easily the best perk system. The level of freedom you have to pick and choose your weapon, sidearm, grenades, perks, and strike packages, I genuinely wish this was all in a COD game that isn't Ghosts. But there are some serious problems that can affect said freedom. Let's start with the maps. Ghost has some of the largest maps in the entire franchise. They are gigantic. These maps are designed like the lobby should be 10v10, 12v12, or even 18v18, and yet it's 6v6 only. I will go very in depth as to why I hate these maps. Because of how large the maps are, a vast amount of time is spent just running around the map trying to find someone to shoot, and because of this, you need the Marathon perk, which lets you sprint indefinitely. I just cannot play this game without it now. It takes way too long to run around these maps. And then there's the weapon flinch when you get shot. I swear to God, Ghost has the worst flinching mechanic of any first-person shooter I've ever played, bar none. Black Ops 2 and Black Ops 3 does not hold a candle to this. It makes the focus perk a necessity. You can barely play this game without this perk, because once you get shot at, it's practically impossible to try and shoot back. Dead Silence is also a major crutch perk, because people sound horror like crazy in this game. This game has some of the worst amount of camping of any game in this series, and I will get into a bunch of reasons as to why later on. And now I gotta talk about Melee. The melee system in this game is just ridiculous. How it works in this game is that you get an insane amount of lunge, and it also seems to auto-lock onto the enemy so that it doesn't whiff, which is a major complaint about the melee mechanic in Black Ops 1 and 2. But this means the moment the enemy is even a few inches away from you, the moment they press that melee button, you're instantly dead, and you can't do anything about it. This is especially worse when fighting against bots, because the bots in this game have inhuman reaction time. So the moment you turn a corner and there's a bot right in front of you, you're just instantly dead, because they're programmed to just immediately knife you the moment you're in a close enough range. I've lost so many kill streaks because of getting immediately knifed by a bot, and it's fucking infuriating. And now that I'm mentioning the bots, they are so overpowered. They always seem to know where I am or where I'm coming from at all times, and without fail, the moment I run around a corner, they just instantly destroy me. I don't know if it's because of the servers I'm playing in, or this is just how the bots are designed, but I've played on numerous different servers and the bots all behave the exact same way. So regardless, why would you make the bots act like this? It doesn't make them very fun to fight against. And you could just say, well, why not just play the game on console? I actually can't, and I'll explain why. See, I don't have a PS5, and my PS4 is 10 years old with a half-broken controller and an internal Wi-Fi adapter that barely works anymore, so I'm gonna lag it constantly. Not to mention, I don't have Call of Duty Ghosts on PlayStation, and even if I did, I'd have to buy all the DLC, and also subscribe to PlayStation Plus, which I'd rather shove my cock into an electrical outlet. Plus, playing on PC is the best way to record the highest quality footage for you, the viewer, who is watching this. So I'm pretty much stuck on PC. Not to mention, I have not played a shooter game on a controller in half a decade, so I would be really terrible. The weapons in this game are very memorable, some iconic ones that return in later games like the Ripper, the AK-12, the ARX-160, and the Honey Badger. My most favorite guns in this game are the Maverick, the SC-2010, the Remington, the CBJ-MS, and the Vepr. As much as I've absolutely hated how this game played, it has some very damn good hit detection, and it had by far the best in the whole series. There's also a mechanic called field orders. Sometimes when you kill an enemy, they drop a little blue briefcase, and when you pick it up, you get a little challenge that pops up on the screen. If you die, however, you automatically fail the challenge. These challenges vary. Minor things like killing an enemy while prone, getting a 3 kill streak, getting a kill with a grenade, or even teabagging an enemy after killing them. If you complete the field order, you get rewarded with a care package. I think this is pretty cool for adding just a little bit more spice to the gameplay loop. Now it's time to get into the nitty-gritty as to why I've hated this game's multiplayer so much over the years. First things first, let's talk about the time to kill. Fast time to kill doesn't bother me too much depending on the game, but the reason I've always preferred Treyarch Call of Duty games over the Infinity Ward ones is because of the slower time to kill. I have very good aim if the footage in my last several videos hasn't shown you that already, but I have literally 0 hours in an aim trainer like Aim Labs and Kovacs. This might sound like a pretty hot take, but frankly I find aim trainers to be a waste of time, because an aim trainer is not 100% reflective of what it's actually like to aim and shoot in games, because there are a shitload of shooter games out there, and almost all of them play differently from one another. I got good at aiming by just playing a bunch of different games and learning the mechanics of each one. Just sitting there having to constantly click balls on the screen while nothing is shooting back at you, which means you don't have to move yourself and adjust your aim accordingly, it just looks so boring to me, and I already have the tendency to doze off at my desk.
Alright, do you want to call it here and go to bed?
Yeah, I guess. I get. Having a slower time to kill means that gunfighting is more rewarding because you have to actually have good aim, hit your shots, and stay on target for a bit longer, and to me it feels like all of the time that I put into improving starts to pay off, as opposed to having a much faster time to kill like in, say, Modern Warfare 2019 for example, where you die so fast that gunfights barely feel like gunfights. It's a game where winning gunfights is dependent on who can aim their sight at each other and pull the trigger the fastest. Sure, having a faster time to kill means that it's easier to balance weapons because it means that any weapon can be viable, but at the same time, it's just really annoying to just die in 2 or 3 shots from everything. You almost never get a chance to react once someone already starts shooting at you. Okay, so I'm recording this Discord call with my close friend Severe Violets VT, who is a big FPS VTuber like me, someone who loves Call of Duty just as much as I do. I mentioned them in my Black Ops 4 video, and so I figured I'd get their input on this. Here's the question. What type of time to kill do you prefer in Call of Duty, faster or slower, and what is your personal reasoning?
Honestly, when it comes to time to kill, I'm able to handle both, but there are what's the word here? There are positives and negatives to both a high TTK and a low TTK. With a lower TTK, due to everything being able to snap you in an instant, as it were, there are more weapons that are viable, even if they are not the best in their category. On the flip side, with a higher TTK, that means there is more of a reliance on longer aiming, as in like being able to hold a target for a longer duration. But the problem is, if the weapons are mostly balanced, but there are one or two that crop up that are better, people just generally tend to gravitate towards those weapons because of the whole theory of dominant strategy, which is, the case with Modern Warfare 3. Whereas most weapons were balanced, but the ACR, the MP7, and probably one more weapon that I'm forgetting about just rose to prominence because they were just infinitely better than the competition. Whereas something like Modern Warfare 2, 2009, every weapon was theoretically busted if you at least ran stopping power, so there was no need for weapons to be balanced because everything was broken. Ergo, the state of balance was, if everything's broken, nothing's broken. If you were to ask me, I think I prefer the low TTK because I would rather more things be viable than a high TTK where everything can be viable, but if there's outliers, then either everything has to be brought up to those levels or they have to be nerfed to the point of being unusable. And also we have to take into account that, playing on a private server, like on these clients, for instance, is much different compared to how we played back in the day, which was, official matchmaking. So we had to deal with people's connections who are probably somewhere halfway across the world for all we know. So ping delay, or in the case of the modern day, skill-based matchmaking, which will most likely put you with connections from really halfway across the world. You could be fighting somebody in Asia for all we know, who has a similar skill rating to you, but because of the connection difference, probably in the 150 plus millisecond ping, you probably have to use something that would kill faster than the average in order to account for the delay.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from with that. I made a similar point about lower TTK in the video as well. Well, actually, I have it written out in my notes, but I also made a similar point about lower TTK in shooter games, meaning that it's easier to balance weapons, because every gun can be viable. Me personally, I prefer slower TTK in games because it feels like you're being rewarded for putting more time into your mechanical skill. I feel like gunfights feel more rewarding when you have to actually hit your shots and track your target for a little bit longer. I feel like you also get more of a chance to react to getting shot, as opposed to a game like MW 2019 where you die so quickly that you can't even react to getting shot, where it's like everyone just has a stopping power perk by default, or the whole game is just playing on hardcore mode. But you like MW 2019, so why is that? Is it just because of the graphics, the animations, the sound design, the music?
Well, obviously it's a combination of a lot of those things because I love the gunsmith. That was easily the best feature about that game. Hell, that was the feature they first advertised when they revealed the game. The game looks great, even for running on what is nearly considered retro hardware at this point. Oh god, the PlayStation 4 is 15 plus years old.
Oh my god. I still have my PS4. It's like 10 years old.
It's a lot of factors, but despite how people played that game and despite what Warzone has done to Call of Duty as a franchise as a whole, I still love Modern Warfare 2019. But also, because of the game's TTK being so low, even the worst gun in the game can still be viable if you play it in its intended ranges. Now, obviously, I'm not going to say that Modern Warfare 2019's time to kill is realistic because, IRL, it doesn't take 5 bullets with a 9mm to kill somebody. But the point is, because that game's low TTK, even something as innocuous as the Uzi could, in theory, be really good if you get in intended ranges. Whereas something like Black Ops 4, with the higher TTK, if a certain weapon just isn't able to kill fast enough without getting the first 2 bullets off, in ideal conditions, then what's the point? You're better off just using another weapon. The only way to fix that weapon would be to either do what Black Ops 1 did and make a lot of the gun clones, which, for the sake of balance, is a relatively good idea, but we still had outliers in Black Ops 1, namely the AKS and the FAMAS, or they just basically buff it up to the point where it's either as good as what's the best or even better slightly, but then that just has its own issues. Like, game design when it comes to TTK is a very fickle matter because you have some games like Titanfall 2 and Battlefield 4 where the TTK is so good that most, if not all, weapons are viable, even if some are easier to do better with than others, or just everything can be viable in an ideal world.
Yeah.
But then we also get to the case of something like Black Ops 3 where some weapons just aren't viable. Again, time to kill is a very fickle matter, but it also helps that I actually like Ghost's gunplay to a certain degree, so maybe that has something to do with it. But just as a general form, if I had to pick between a high TTK and a low TTK based on what people usually play multiplayer for, which is, to fight against other people online, lower TTK would probably be the safer bet. And, well, as fun as it is to turn on somebody who's shooting you in the back, how often does that actually happen, even with a high TTK?
I mean, I have a better of a chance to react to people fucking sitting in corners.
Well, yeah, but how often does that happen? Like, obviously, you're going to remember the times you did it, but how many times do you remember the times you didn't do it?
Yeah, I know, but like even in the Treyarch games, like people sitting like in Black Ops 2, for example, like people sit in corners like fucking crazy. You see the amount of people who sit in corners with an LSAT and a target finder.
We all did that back in the day.
MK48 with the what was it? The variable zoom scope.
Variable zoom, target detector, maybe even thermal. It was like, we all did that back in the day. We were all kids.
Yeah. Here is another lovely person who loves Call of Duty just as much as I do. I also mentioned them in my Black Ops 4 video, and so I figured I'd give them a little bit of love too. So, Mika, what type of time to kill do you prefer in Call of Duty games, and why do you think so?
Well, honestly, I'm a little bit biased towards the older games, so honestly, anything kind of like between like the once you got rid of stopping power and into BO2, I'd say that's probably about my prime. Not too fast, not too slow, but it seems fine.
Yeah, that's the exact same reason that I love the Treyarch Call of Duty games. I prefer the slower time to kill over the faster time to kill. I had the same conversation with Sumi, but I prefer a slower time to kill because, having mechanical skill. And we played MW 2019 a couple times in the past. From what I remember, you don't like MW 2019, do you? Is it because of how fast you die in that game, or is it the amount of people camping, or whatever?
It's 50% time to kill being a little bit too fast, but it's also, it seems like the weapon handling speeds and stuff, like sprint times, they all seem slowed down, and that's kind of catered towards a slower playstyle, but stuff kills fast, and it's a camp fest.
Yeah.
Did I mention the 725?
The fucking bait of my existence. That was the one thing that I criticized MW 2019 for the most. Well, besides the amount of thermoscope spam, claymore spam, bouncing Betty spam, constant fucking, heady spots all over each map. Now take what I just said about Modern Warfare 2019 and apply that to Ghosts. Except, Ghosts is even worse. I'm not joking. No stopping power doesn't mean shit. Ghost has by far the lowest time to kill of any COD game I've ever played. Not only that, but it also has one of the highest headshot multipliers of any COD game in the whole franchise. It genuinely feels like you die in 1 or 2 shots from everything in this game, like the whole game is just playing on hardcore mode. And then there's the goddamn motherfucking sons of bitchin' thermal scope spam. M27 thermal scope spam, or just thermal scope spam in general, was synonymous with this game's very infamous reputation. It is some of the most insufferable shit I've ever had to experience in any game, just the absolute bane of my existence. This shit alone is why everyone hated this game, because of how easy the thermoscope is to use and how good it actually is. But then you combine that with how large the maps are, the gutting of the UAV system from previous games, the amount of IMS spam that's in the game, the insanely low time to kill, meaning you can barely react when someone starts firing at you, and the fact that you need dead silence so that the enemy can't hear you running up on them, meant that all of this combined together created an unbelievably toxic environment. It encouraged the most cornball cheesy playstyles you could possibly think of. Even the bots camp in corners with the M27. Like, what the fuck? It's all the exact same reasons that I heavily criticized Modern Warfare 2019 for in my Black Ops 4 video. Low TTK, thermal scope spam, changing the minimap system, dead silence being mandatory, and explosive utility spam like claymores and bouncing betties making flak jacket or blast shield a necessity as well. The IMS is also legendary with how much it made people want to punch a hole through their TV screen. The reason it sucks so badly is because by the time you notice that you just triggered one, it's already too late. You cannot run away once an IMS detects you. It auto-locks onto you no matter which direction you decide to run in. You just eat shit no matter what. They're also hard to spot because they blend so well into the shitty environments, and what also doesn't help is that for some reason you can stick an IMS on walls and on the ceiling, which makes them even harder to spot, because of course, a gamer's biggest weakness is the inability to look up. I mean, for Christ's sake, on the map Flooded, you can literally hide IMSs inside the water. Just why? Why are you able to do this? If you encounter a bunch of IMS spam, please, for the love of God, make a class with the engineer perk. If the thermal scope and the IMS just didn't exist in this game, and if the maps were smaller, then I would enjoy this game so much more. Although for some reason on PC there's a game-breaking bug where using any sort of scoped weapon causes the FPS to completely shit itself once you aim down sight. It makes all of the sniper rifles virtually unusable. I don't know why this happens nor how to fix it, and I'm not the only person who's having this issue. This has apparently been in the game for a long time. I've mentioned the maps quite a handful of times, but haven't actually talked about them yet. Other than a few base game maps and some DLC ones, the vast majority of the maps in this game are just ass. They indeed have a ton of attention to detail to them, there is no denying that. The developers made a big deal out of destructible environments, like the bus falling over in Chasm, or the chem strike in Strike Zone, or the building slowly falling in Freefall, or the gas station exploding, so on and so forth. But let's be real here, this is not Battlefield 4 or even Battlefield 3 for that matter. Interactable environments in a Call of Duty game doesn't mean anything, it's just marketing buzzwords. If the colors weren't so ugly, then the maps would be so much better to look at in general. But the visibility is also so poor that enemies can just blend into the environment, which is part of the reason why there's so much thermal scope spam, because the scope makes it stupidly easy to spot enemies. Look at this shot here. Can you see where the enemy is? I'll zoom it in real quick. That's him right there. How in the hell are you supposed to see that? But looks also aren't everything. These maps just feel like trash to play on even if the visibility was better. Prison Break, Octane, Stormfront, oh my god, Stormfront. Siege, Stonehaven, do I even need to say more? Chasm, Flooded, I despise this one. Freefall, Ruins, Sub-Zero, Gold Rush, Showtime, which is basically an abomination of shipment. These maps are just dreadful. How ridiculously large they are for 6v6 with some of the most ridiculously large sightlines of any other COD game, where being even remotely out in the open means you'll die from across the map by a sniper or a thermal scope. And also a lot of the buildings can be entered and have multiple floors to them, which means anyone can just run into any building they please, get themselves a bit of high ground, and just sit in a window aiming down sight the entire time waiting for someone to show up. And once you get your IMS, you can be even more of an annoying cunt. And because of how ugly and blurry the graphics are even at 1080p, and how everything just seems to blend in because of the muted color palette, means that it's very difficult to spot enemies, especially at longer ranges. This results in Ghosts having one of the most rage-inducing multiplayers I've ever played. I mentioned this before in my BO4 video that I play Call of Duty very aggressively. I've been playing this way for almost 20 years now, and Ghosts just felt like I was being punished for doing so. It's something I've always hated about modern Infinity Ward games, how it seems like they prioritize realism and immersion rather than just making a fast-paced arcade twitch shooter like the original Modern Warfare games, which is what I've always believed Call of Duty is at its core. I went on a massive tangent about this in my previous video and why I believe that Black Ops 4 is the last genuinely great COD game. Although it has a shitload of problems of its own, that's a game I will much rather play than any of the later COD games. There is no denying that Ghost has some pretty amazing gunplay, which is always something that Infinity Ward really seems to nail really well in their games. The games always seem to have amazing sound design, buttery smooth animations and gunplay, and very damn good hit detection, much better than the Treyarch games. But none of that really means anything when the actual experience of playing the game is hernia-inducing. However, this only applies when playing modes outside of the usual team deathmatch, kill-confirmed domination, hardpoint, demolition, etc. One of the better modes in this game is called Cranked. Basically, when you get a kill, you get a timer to kill another enemy, or what happens? You explode and die. So this basically forces everyone to, move. Something that this game desperately needs, and yet no one plays this mode on PC, which just sucks. But the best mode in this game would have to be Infected. Something about it just plays very well in this game. The large maps actually suit a mode like this. Having a bunch of people in a lobby running around maps this large actually feels appropriate. But easily one of the best highlights of this game is that you can play as Michael Myers in The Predator, which... What the hell? I had no idea Michael Myers and The Predator were even in this game. You probably wouldn't even know about this existing in the game because you can only play as them on certain maps. You have to own the Devastation and Onslaught DLCs. Why in the holy mother of shit is this locked behind a paywall? Why couldn't this just be its own separate mode and made a part of the base game? Christ, it's like the more that I do research for these videos, the more I utterly despise Activision Blizzard as a company. To play as the Predator, you have to own the Devastation DLC, Beyond the Map Ruins, and then you have to complete field orders. Once you do that, you'll have a chance to actually play as the Predator. He has a cloaking ability where he can go invisible and has claw weapons and a shoulder plasma launcher thing like in the movies. You can activate various different modes of vision like thermal vision and whatnot, like the game is actually following the movies, which is just sick, dude. I actually just recently started playing Alien vs Predator 2 for the very first time, and I'm obsessed with this game.
Am I seeing things?
So seeing the Predator appear in another game, I'm feeling deja vu. To play as Michael Myers, you have to own the Onslaught DLC, be on the map Fog, and then you have to complete field orders for a chance for him to pop up. Michael Myers was a fan favorite thing to do in the old Call of Duty games, but I actually did not think that it would be put into a game officially. That's crazy.
Friendly SATCOM active.
Why couldn't the game just do more of this kind of shit? This looks so goddamn fun. Someone should genuinely make a 24/7 Infected, Predator, and Michael Myers server. This would be an absolute ball to play with my friends. This is something that you just cannot play in newer con games. This definitely deserves some recognition. I'd play this over the standard multiplayer any day. And you wanna know what else I really miss after seeing gameplay of this? I miss the Friday the 13th game, man. I'm still devastated that game got shut down. It's still criminal that it happened, because I love the shit out of that game, and so did all my friends. I have a lot of very funny moments of playing that game when it was in its prime.
Whoa, GG. Did they have, wait, did they have, oh. What the fuck?
I have a lot of nostalgia for this game. The soundtrack, the brutal kill animations, the funny facial expressions, the amount of people I've seen who don't know how to drive the car, and the memes that came out of this game were just legendary. Even something as stupidly simplistic as hearing the Unreal Engine logo when starting up the game. Unreal Engine 4, my beloved. Also, fuck Unreal Engine 5 and Unreal Engine 6. Can we just go back to making games on Unreal Engine 4 again? It was honestly a perfect engine. I miss Friday the 13th, and yes, I can still play the game on PlayStation, granted with peer-to-peer servers, but my PS4 is 10 years old and is barely hanging on. And Sony can suck my ass from a bendy straw if they think I'm gonna give them even a penny for a PlayStation Plus subscription, especially after they just announced that they're killing off all physical media starting in 2028. The game was taken off of Steam because the license to the IP expired, and to this day there isn't any sort of modded client for PC that brings the game back. I don't know if that's even possible, but god damn it, fuck Dead by Daylight. Hashtag bring back Friday the 13th. I would love to hear if someone out there is actually trying to do so. Can you tell I have autism? I get sidetracked a lot. Ghost multiplayer has a lot of interesting ideas that generally should be implemented into future games, like its create a class system, perk system, character customization, and a mode where one player gets to play as Michael Myers or the Predator and you have to hunt down enemy players. But man, this multiplayer is an even bigger mess than the campaign. Granted, I definitely do enjoy the game a bit more now, but that's probably because I'm playing on PC on the IW6X client with all of the DLC installed. Regardless, this is still one of the weaker multiplayer games. If you do enjoy this game's multiplayer, hell, I probably should have mentioned this a long time ago, but if you do enjoy this game in general, then God bless you and may you live to be at least 90 years old. But multiplayer is not the highlight of this game, at least not for me. This next mode is what I think people remember the most about it, myself included. It is easily the best part of the entire game. This is a mode that genuinely should be brought back in a newer game because there is nothing else that plays like it. Survival and spec ops from the Modern Warfare games has been replaced with an all-new mode called Extinction, and low-key I think this is also Infinity Ward's attempt at a COD Zombies type of experience. You have the option of playing either solo or with a group of friends. However, there is one drawback. You only get one map in the base game. Yes, that's it. One. There are 5 maps in total. If you want the other maps, you need the DLC. Glad to see that even back then, Activision Blizzard is still one of the worst companies in the entire gaming industry. 80% of this game's Extinction content is locked behind a paywall, unless you can get the DLC for dirt cheap during a sale or through other conventional means, then I'd say go for it, because as I said before, Extinction is without question the best mode in this game. Instead of fighting zombies, you fight aliens, and this is drastically much different than what we're used to. Even if you're not a COD Zombies person, you've probably played zombies at least once in your life, or even know about how iconic and recognizable the core gameplay of zombies is. You recognize how the zombies move around, how they attack, how they move in pairs, and how they respond to getting shot. But here, you're fighting aliens, and aliens behave drastically different than zombies. They move much faster and more sporadically, sometimes hit harder, and have both close range and long range attacks like spitting acid at you, exploding on you, teleportation, etc. There are no waves in this game. There's no such thing as surviving as long as possible like in COD Zombies. Instead, now you have a very clear set of objectives that you have to complete, and the level gets progressively harder as you get further. I say this, but the only thing you do throughout each level is to haul a giant drill, plant it in front of an alien hive, then you gotta protect the drill until the hive is destroyed. This is pretty much what you do for 95% of the whole mode. If the drill gets destroyed, then you gotta start the whole level over. There are also some points where you gotta defend something like these gas pipes, and if these get destroyed, then you also gotta start from the beginning. And if you die at any point, then you gotta start from the beginning, although you do get some self-revives as you play through the level. If you wanted to, you could crank up the difficulty even further, but I do not recommend doing this unless you unlock all your upgrades. Because holy shit, this mode is hard. This is probably the most difficult side mode I've played in a COD game, especially if you're playing solo. You get swarmed constantly, and the game loves to spam enemies that shoot projectiles at you, particularly the scorpions. These things are just annoying because they jump around all over the place and they shoot poisonous acid at you, which does a lot of damage, blurs your screen, and limits your movement. It gets even worse in the later stages, because the game starts throwing more enemy types at you, such as gargoyles, which are tanky, fly around all over the place, and shoot projectiles at you. Then there are these things called bombers, which fly around and explode on you, which is annoying as is, but it's even worse when you consider that your character never shuts up and keeps repeating the same line over and over again. Bomber incoming! So this game has an upgrade system. Basically, you get classes here at the top, and each one does something different. Weapon Specialist increases weapon damage and reload speed, Tank gives you more health and melee damage, Engineer lets you repair drills faster and you get increased explosive damage, and Medic lets you revive teammates faster and you can help the team regenerate their health faster. Then you can make a loadout. As you play through the level and complete objectives, you get skill points, and you use these skill points to upgrade your character, although this only lasts until you either die or complete the level. You have to pick and choose which upgrades you want to bring into the level with you. I recommend getting all your pistol upgrades as soon as you can, because you'll be able to carry 2 primaries along with your pistol, and when you reach the final upgrade you can dual wield your pistol, which means double the firepower. Don't underestimate this, because the fully upgraded pistol is one of the best weapons in the game. There are also a bunch of passive upgrades you can unlock, but you need what are called teeth. As you play the game and complete objectives, you'll randomly obtain alien teeth, and then you use the teeth to unlock passive upgrades. In terms of other items, you can get upgrades like armor-piercing ammo, explosive ammo, incendiary ammo, more explosives for you and your team, faster movement speed and health regeneration, armor, sentry guns, mortar strikes, vultures, and even special heavy weaponry like a minigun, a grenade launcher, and a portable turret. Then you have these things called relics. They don't upgrade your character whatsoever. In fact, they act like the skulls from Halo. They're just there to make the game even harder. I honestly don't know why you would have these on, because the game is already really hard as is. This game, even on normal difficulty, will absolutely kick your ass until you get all the upgrades. If you're playing solo, I recommend equipping the armor upgrade, because you get overwhelmed very often and your health regenerates so slowly. It's so slow that in order to keep yourself alive longer, you gotta throw it on armor boxes, and you're gonna be doing this a lot. In the later stages, I get absolutely bombarded with seekers, scorpions, gargoyles, and bombers, to the point that I just cannot get a chance to breathe. I'm constantly moving, trying not to let the drill get damaged, and throwing down ammo and armor boxes like crazy. I can literally feel myself sweating playing this shit. I'm mashing buttons like I'm playing a Diablo game. This game is just absolutely relentless when you're playing by yourself. I genuinely struggled getting through these levels, almost like the game wasn't really designed for it. But then that changes once you decide to play with someone. Thank you to my great friend Maddie for playing the game with me and helping me out with recording footage of this. You definitely made playing this even more fun than it already is. I had an absolute blast playing this with you. Here are a few highlights of my co-op experience. Let's see.
Point of contact.
Point of contact. So, toilet paper roll server. Join that one.
Okay. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. One of my favorite things about Extinction is just I feel come over here. You find these awesome little things from the digs. I found a SoFlam. Now what it does, I don't remember. We're gonna figure out.
Oh my!
One of the things that I like though is the replayability of finding random attachments. Because you just, like, to get good attachments for your guns, you gotta find it. You can't just, like, you know, like Black Ops 7 or Black Ops 6, you just load up with your perfect loadout off rip, and you have a gun that you can just max out from the beginning.
Yeah, and then you could just pack a punch it, which makes it even better. You could do that in Black Ops 4. Oh, this guy needs to revive. Oh. Get off your ass and on your feet, soldier! We're moving!
Get on your feet, soldier! We are leaving! Oh wait, there's sometimes a tank around here. Oh, there he is, he's coming. Oh, the Hypno Knife did not work! When I'm back in Chicago, I eat ass. Politicians be like, max out on money, here's some bullets. What is Freb doing?
Freb? Where is... What the f... What?
He's floating! He's Jesus! Mr. Freb is Jesus.
What? He's downed. What the fuck? How do I even get him? Hold on.
Feral instincts.
Here we go. Hold on. I'm reviving him.
Cheon, come on!
I'm trying. Oh no.
Right, we have
oh
to
no.
hold out here
Oh
for
no.
a bit
Oh
while
no.
this thing's
Oh
up.
no. Oh.
I'm dying. I threw down armor. Alright, time to go.
I need that armor, please. Oh, okay.
There's another tank spawning. We gotta go.
No fucking way. Dude, what's with all the tanks?
I'm dying. Help.
I'm trying. Hang on. Ah! Fuck! No! Shit.
Are you down?
Yeah.
I'm a
I'm
medic,
shooting at the
so...
tank. The tank's dead. Thanks. I'm gonna grab that armor.
Let's go.
Oh my god, another tank! Dude! Fuck this. Here.
Fred,
Nice.
what are you doing?
Oh.
Thank fuck, Fred.
Oh, fucking hell. GG.
I remember this cutscene. Holy crap.
Oh. GG.
That was awesome.
Now let's talk about the levels. The first level, Point of Contact, takes place where you have to go through an apocalyptic Colorado, and you have to fight aliens, destroy alien hives, and then finally initiate the nuke and extract. Right off the bat, the visuals of these levels are easily the best looking parts of the entire game. They have so much attention to detail to them, and would you look at that, they have something that this game has been sorely missing. Color! The next level, Nightfall, takes place on an Alaskan facility where there was an outbreak and a shitload of the workers were killed. You destroy more hives, fight a mini-boss, destroy more hives, then you fight the mini-boss again at the end. The next level, Mayday, takes place on a ship in the middle of the sea. You destroy hives, but then you have to protect this gas chamber and not let the aliens destroy these pipes. And then at the end, you fight this gigantic squid-looking boss fight, which I believe is called the Guardian. What is the Guardian? I'll explain that later on. The next level, Awakening, looks like some 2009 Avatar shit, with all the weird-looking trees and flowers. But the colors on this level are just insane. But it's here where I start to really struggle with the difficulty because again, constant scorpion, gargoyle, and bomber spam. Instead of destroying hives with a drill, you gotta scan these large artifacts. It's basically no different. But at some point you gotta control a drone and destroy them, which does break up the pace a little. On the last level, Exodus, you have to protect and activate generators instead of destroying hives. And then you encounter these enemies that float in midair and have some sort of shield. These are called Ancestors, and these guys have a lot of interesting backstory to them. Extinction actually does have lore and a story, and I find this to be way more interesting than the standard campaign. The only thing is, in order to fully understand Extinction's story, you have to either play through each map multiple times, or just do a bunch of background research. Or you could just keep watching this video, because I'm going to explain all of it to you. So why don't I go more in depth as to what Extinction is about? Spoiler warning, you have been warned. About 300 million years before humans would roam the Earth, there was a large amount of humanoid-type species which are called cryptids. They would connect to each other via symbiotic relationships, and they had brains which allow them to communicate telepathically with each other. Due to the insanely large amount of cryptids, they would separate themselves into smaller colonies. Cryptids are able to source their own power and are able to regenerate themselves due to geothermal heat rather than the heat that comes from the sun. But the power of these cryptids are minuscule compared to what are known as the Ancestors, powerful creatures which are the masters that these cryptids would serve. Their bodies are weak, but they can levitate into the air and generate gravitational shields to protect themselves. They have a psychokinetic gland located in their brain that allows them to gather biometric energy from both dead and living creatures, which in turn allows them to produce a giant thermoblast that could end all life within its radius. The Ancestors would watch over and protect these large geothermal reactors known as arcs. Reactors that would gain heat from active volcanoes that the cryptids would occupy near. The arcs are actually what would help each colony survive. Each volcano was then protected by gravimetric force fields, but in order to have one last pillar of defense, an aquatic guardian was created to protect all the colonies. They would travel across the planet beneath the seas and solve any issues that came about in each colony. 5,000 years later, humans would emerge and roam the Earth. The ancestors would then be able to take control of 12 humans and make them capable of taking some sort of virus, which would allow the arcs to be awakened. And after 150 million years have passed, only a few humans have ever been aware of the cryptids living below the planet. So essentially, the cryptids have been able to survive all the way until the modern day because of the ancestors, not only with their protection, but also by activating the arcs and creating the Guardian, 3 different pillars of protection. Fast forward to the 21st century, a man named David Archer, who was a part of the Special Air Service, led a team of 6 men in Pakistan, and after a mission ended in failure, they were forced to extract. However, the operator in charge denied them of their exfil and were left stranded in caves for about 6 weeks before they were finally rescued. However, during those 6 weeks, David Archer would then discover a colony of cryptids. He then became obsessed with them and wanted to learn more and more about them and where they came from. When he would return home, he was then evaluated where a psychiatrist believed that David was just imagining the existence of the cryptids. But they didn't stop him as he decided to gather up a team of scientists in order to help him find them again. This is a project that he would then call Nightfall, based in Alaska. During an archaeological dig of cryptids somewhere in Mexico, the language of the cryptids would be discovered, which is called obelisk. In order to decipher this language, David would get the help from Dr. Samantha Cross, who had a neurological condition that allowed her to translate over 25 languages. She was then actually put in charge of the Nightfall project, but as the months passed, the Federation would launch an attack against the Odin orbital weapons launcher that I talked about in the campaign, and used it to destroy the vast majority of the West Coast. A stray shot would then hit a volcanic site located in Colorado, which revealed the colony of cryptids living underneath. The ancestors saw that there was a huge conflict going on between the cryptids and the humans, and so they ordered them to kill all the humans inside of Colorado, which led the military to believe that this mass murder was actually caused by some sort of deadly virus and was kept under quarantine. A special forces team would then be deployed and sent out to investigate the site where all of this happened, but once they got there they would disappear. In order to prevent this supposed outbreak from spreading even further, the president will order a nuclear strike in order to contain it. As this operation was beginning, the threat of an alien invasion was then presented to the Nightfall program, which made David go to investigate himself. He and his men came across some cryptids and managed to smuggle them in order to do research on them. Once the nuke would hit, the Ark, along with all the cryptids, would be seemingly destroyed, and therefore the government could now focus on the war against the Federation. However, after Nightfall obtained cryptid specimens, they would then be bred in order to allow more experimentation, and the scientists would discover that the cryptids actually originated from Earth. As more specimens were being created, David Archer would also obtain the toxic venom from a scorpion and use it to create weapons, and thus the Venom X was born, which you probably recognize as that one DLC weapon from Infinite Warfare. Dr. Samantha Cross started to question what exactly the end goal is in all of this, and started to have some serious hesitations about what she was doing.
I've been here a month, but I still freeze up every time I hear that shrieking coming from the hatchery. Archer says it's a normal reflex, something hardwired in our DNA from prehistoric times. He calls them cryptids. I've seen specimens from a dozen different species, plants, animals, things they don't even have a name for, an entire ecosystem. It's the greatest scientific discovery of the century. Why are they keeping it all a secret? And why did they fly me halfway around the world to see this? It's been 2 months. I've been studying the records of the Nightfall program. After the caverns were breached by an Odin strike, Archer discovered the colony in Colorado. He brought the specimens here. They found out later that the cryptid homeworld was a harsh planet. Its skies stained black from the ash of 1,000 volcanoes. A comet ignited the oxygen in the atmosphere. That firestorm incinerated every living thing on the surface of the planet. That planet was Earth, 300 million years ago. Which is why Archer hates it when people drop the A word. There's nothing alien about the cryptids. They've been here longer than we have. I told Archer that translating a dead language is like solving a crime. I need the facts to find the clues. Like, where the hell did this thing come from? And what else did he find there? I didn't get the answers I wanted. For some reason, Archer and the others are keeping me in the dark. I've hardly slept in 3 weeks. The translation consumes every waking minute. Archer brought me out to the hatchery today. He said I needed a break from the translation. He said he had something special he wanted me to see. We watched while it tore its way out of an egg sac the size of a trailer, and proceeded to eviscerate a terrified horse that Archer forced into its pen. I can't get the sound of that animal's screams out of my mind. Archer was laughing and smoking a cigar like a proud father.
David Archer would then begin to contact someone known as Contact 28, due to wanting to locate the rest of the colonies and the arcs across the Earth. David was actually planning on negotiating Nightfall's weaponry and live specimens to Contact 28 in exchange for a ship and a crew, but before this was even able to come to fruition, in a desperate attempt to save herself, Samantha would then reveal David's plans and his location of operations to the government, which in turn would label David as a terrorist and would order an investigation into Nightfall. Samantha was actually growing much closer to the final encryptions of the Obelisk language, however she began to suffer from the virus that was encoded in her brain. She received commands that were given to the cryptids by the Ancestors. This entire time she actually did not know that she is actually an agent of the Ancestors, and over time she has actually been taught to harness her telepathic abilities, which would then cause a breach of Nightfall's hatchery. This basically caused an outbreak in the facility, and a total of 127 employees were killed. Samantha was then scared for her own sanity, being that she's basically the reason why this happened, but the cryptids refused to harm her, being that she relays commands given to them by the Ancestors. Samantha would then shelter herself inside of the research lab. David Archer, wanting to still keep his research alive, commanded an all-out evacuation of the facility. News of this broke out to the government, and they were preparing for a second containment of the outbreak. Being that David and Samantha were two of the few survivors left, David vowed to kill Samantha and continue the research all on his own. 3 months after the Colorado outbreak, a special forces team would then be sent to Nightfall to contain the second outbreak, kill Samantha Cross, and either capture or kill David Archer. Upon breaching the facility though, Samantha would fully finish decrypting the Obelisk language, and after doing so, she decided to end her own life in order to prevent David Archer from being able to discover the device's true nature. But she wasn't able to because she got captured by David, who had actually escaped the facility once the outbreak had broken out. For over 3 weeks, David would conduct terrible experiments on Samantha, which led to discover how to tame the cryptids.
Good morning. How do you feel, Dr. Cross?
Like I'm gonna throw up.
That's just seasickness.
What? Where am I?
Please don't try to move. The implants are still bonding.
What are you talking about? What did you do to me?
Welcome aboard, Doctor. Let's get to work, shall we?
No!
Her brain was basically used as a beacon to locate their colony with the help of an employee named Dr. Kaiser, Kaiser being a world-known scientist in neuroprosthetics. Samantha's beacon allowed the arcs to be found very easily. Kaiser would interrogate Samantha under the orders of David, who is convinced that Samantha is the key to diverting control of the cryptids from the Ancestors. Samantha claims that she was manipulated by the Ancestors to release the cryptids.
Let's talk about Alaska. Where were you the night of the outbreak?
How many times have I told you? I don't remember.
You don't remember sabotaging the hatchery failsafes? How does one forget the mass murder of 127 innocent men and women?
Innocent.
You are the guilty one, Samantha. That is a fact. The question is why?
What do you want from me?
The truth.
The truth. The truth is, I didn't do it. They did. I'm just a tool to them, like every other living thing on this planet.
Who do you mean by them?
Look, you want to crawl inside my head, Doc? Someone beat you to it.
You claim you were acting under a kind of, hypnosis, caused by this obelisk that Mr. Archer brought back from Colorado.
By the time I finished translating the inscription, it was already too late.
How's that?
Do you know what a memetic virus is?
It's a kind of behavioral program, imprinted directly onto a person's subconscious, using a coded sequence of words and images. Well, in theory.
Theory. Right. We both know where this is headed, Doc. And you're afraid, because you don't know which side I'm playing for.
I assume you are on the side of the human species.
I guess we'll find out. Won't we?
How did you become aware that you possessed these, psychokinetic abilities.
They've been teaching me, showing me what I'm capable of. Things you can't imagine.
Like telepathic communication.
It's not witchcraft, Doctor. Their language is a kind of algorithmic code, like software that runs on neurons instead of microchips.
That's why the cryptids will not harm you. They've been bred to obey these, commands.
Well, that's the funny thing, Doc. The brain of a cryptid is not so different from the brain of a human when you get down to it. We both know that I'm getting stronger every day. How much time do you think you have before you're on your knees, begging me to let you die?
As this continued, the crew began to have nightmares that they believed were coming from Samantha. One man even attempted to shoot and kill her, so David decided to feed this man to the cryptid larvae. David then began to experiment with anti-cryptid weaponry, fearing for the crew's safety. My guy, you just fucking fed a man to the cryptids and conducted horrible experiments on an innocent woman to achieve your own goals. My ass, you care about the safety of your crew. David believes that he has finally found the secret to controlling the cryptids, so he planned to have a giant large-scale weapon created using the power of Samantha Cross's brain. He planned to create a weapon that would be able to wipe all cryptid life forms within a certain range. The government began to be fearful of a possibly horrible outcome of this, which would then be turned into a program called Exodus. Exodus was basically going to be used as a sort of plan B in case of an all-out invasion of the cryptids. A task force would then raid an archaeological site in order to secure technology like the Venom X prototype, which was left behind by Nightfall, which would alert Federation forces. The two sides would then fight each other over Nightfall's work. David Archer would then ask to join forces with the Federation because he claims that the human race is endangered, and so presented all of his weapons and research, to which a man named General Castle agreed to recruit him to help fight against the cryptid menace. One of these projects being named Medusa, and I'll get into what Medusa is in a few minutes. During a skirmish against some cryptids, David's arm would become infected, and so Samantha decides to chop it off and form a sort of alliance with David. By this point, Samantha has gone off the deep end, and can you really blame her considering all the awful shit she has endured because of David?
The poison is lethal.
No. None of this is real.
Then this shouldn't hurt.
What do you want from me?
Same as everyone else. I want to make a deal.
She decides to make a deal with David. In exchange for helping him find the nearby Ark, he helps her get off the island. David was also ordered by General Castle to bring back Samantha alive. David, clearly shit-pissed by this, decided that he wanted revenge. And here's what happens.
We're done here, lads. Time to say goodnight.
Careful where you point that thing.
Sir, are you okay? Archer's lost it, man!
You wouldn't want to hurt yourself. Of all the people who are gonna die today, no one deserves it more than you.
Oh yeah, she's fucking lost it. After the Federation lost contact with David, he was basically left for dead. General Castle would then launch a nuclear response code which is named Scorched Earth, since he knew damn well that a worldwide outbreak was basically inevitable. With the green light given by the president, strikes would hit across the planet, so Samantha would disappear, leaving the Federation in the middle of the outbreak. 3 months later, the CIF were given orders by General Castle to restore a facility power grid in order to activate Medusa. Medusa is actually capable of wiping out every cryptid within a 3-mile radius, therefore granting Exodus a safe passage to Earth's orbit refuge in the midst of operation. Samantha Cross actually comes into contact with Exodus' surviving personnel, while the Ancestors channel a broadcast to General Castle, impersonating David Archer in order to destroy his alliance with Samantha. With the power grid back on, Samantha reveals that the CIF team needed to sacrifice themselves in order to activate Medusa in order to help the human race from being wiped out. General Castle then commanded his men to fight against the remaining cryptids. Medusa is then detonated, which would kill every single cryptid in its wake. Samantha is then taken into space, where she would lose contact with the Earth after 48 hours, with the Ark also losing contact with the Earth after 48 hours. According to her logs, she claims that the planet had been saved by the cryptids, but at the cost of billions of lives being lost. But she also claims that the cryptids were still out there, still alive somewhere, if not on Earth, then somewhere else in our galaxy. So she decided to send the humans who were with her on the Ark back to Earth while she stayed there in order to watch for more cryptids. By this point, she has become fully aware of her power and how important she is for the survival of the human species. After 3 weeks of losing contact with Earth, she began to feel lonely. As time went on, this only got worse, and she decided that she wanted all of this to just finally end. So she sent the Ark out into space, where it would then land on a distant icy planet, hoping that this would solve it. Almost 200 years later, in the year 2199, scientists from Zetacorp Industries would land on this planet and discover the Ark, with Samantha Cross's preserved body still inside, to which they had no idea who she was. They also have no idea of neither the existence of the cryptids, nor how a human even got to this planet, which I guess that makes sense? I mean, the vast majority of people weren't even alive when the cryptid invasion reached its conclusion, but surely at least a handful of people out there would have been able to preserve that history. It's only been 200 years. So Zetacorp begins to study Samantha Cross and discovers that her DNA was vastly different to theirs, so they decide to give a nickname to her body, which is called Eve. Sooner or later, they also find who she truly was thanks to the Ark's data logs.
Chief Engineering Officer Sandoval has finally decoded the encrypted messages from Eve's vessel, who we now have learned was named Samantha Cross. The data he sent me included files on a weapon called Venom X, a species of creatures called the cryptids, and one additional file that appears to be corrupted titled Ark that we have been unable to restore. I've searched the entirety of our database, and there is no mention of this woman, nor of this weapon, or of the Ark. What in the hell was a female human doing here on this planet? And why is her DNA and cellular structure so different from our own?
3 weeks. No contact. Alone. I wonder if he survived. The communications with surface faded. 48 hours of on the Ark. The final... The cryptid scourge had been completely... Billions lost their lives. Complete extinction of mankind was prevented. I hope that the Arks have been destroyed. Earth is safe, but I can still faintly sense them. Somewhere. Waiting. I've nearly reached my... May this finally... nightmare.
They also find out that the cells inside of her body were still alive after all this time, even though she is technically dead. So of fucking course, the scientists decide to test out her genetics on other living organisms, which caused them to start summoning in cryptids. So they came back and killed everyone in the facility. History just keeps repeating itself, it seems. No one ever seems to learn their goddamn lesson or learn from previous mistakes. And yet, believe it or not, this is actually how the story ends. I'm not kidding. And after reading about all of this, I have to say, what a genuinely fascinating story. I can tell just by reading and explaining all of this game's story to you, there was a ton of love and passion put into this. This is the most in-depth I think I've ever gone into anything, well, ever. If you're going to play this mode, I recommend getting someone to play with, and of course, being on the modded client so that you can play safely. Because I think after trying to beat every level solo, this game is better experienced with people. I've recorded almost 8 hours of footage of this, both solo and with playing with other people. This mode alone is worth picking up this game and should not be forgotten. Well, that was a pretty high note to end on. Extinction honestly surprised me even more than the first time I played it many years ago. I'd say Extinction alone is worth picking up this game, or pick it up again if you've already played it before. The overall package though, yeah, this game is a mess. The campaign is hilariously stupid with cringy writing, dialogue, and voice acting, but has some neat ideas. I just wish that the vast majority of them weren't just one-off gimmicks. Did I still have fun playing it? Yeah, I did. The multiplayer is an unbalanced, rage-inducing mess that heavily encourages slow, campy, and cheesy playstyles, which is something I made very clear that I really hate. But again, it had some amazing ideas like its create a class system and grounded character customization, which is something I sorely miss in the new Call of Duty games, and being able to play as Michael Myers in The Predator, which you can't do in any other game. How can you not find this to be cool? It also has one of the best rosters of weapons in the entire franchise, with great hit detection and amazing sound design. But the highlight for me personally is Extinction. It is a very refreshing take on the typical Call of Duty co-op experience, has insane storytelling, and has a really difficult gameplay loop that almost begs you to play with friends. But if you want the best possible experience, you need to own the DLC, otherwise you're missing out, which is really shitty. Why are we still having to pay for DLC in 2026? Just include it with the base game for Christ's sake. This game is 13 years old. Then people wonder why I don't spend my own money on these games anymore. Is the hate for this game justified? Honestly, I'm a bit 50-50 on that, because while Ghost is a melting pot of bad ideas that Activision wanted to forget ever happened, I still did enjoy my time playing the game and recording almost 15 hours of gameplay footage. I don't hate it as much as I did back when the game was in its prime. I don't give number scores to games, but in this game's case, for me personally, it has gone from a 2 out of 10 or a 3 out of 10 to like a 6 out of 10 or a 6.5 out of 10. That's a big improvement, but it's still a bit middle of the road for me. But I would much rather play this than MW 2019, MW2, Vanguard, Black Ops 6, or Black Ops 7. I can kind of understand why this game has a bit of a cult following in retrospect. It's not amazing, but it's a game I had a pretty good time with. It's crazy to think that only 4 months after launch, it had already sold almost 20 million copies, and yet Activision still chose not to make a sequel. I would imagine because of the abysmal reception the game has received, and also because sales were lower than Black Ops 2. I wonder what a Ghost 2 would actually be like, because at least with a game like Black Ops 4, I'm perfectly okay with it being the way that it is, considering that there are so many different Call of Duty games to play, especially since almost 8 more Call of Duty games have come out after Black Ops 4. But with Ghosts, this was such an unmitigated disaster that I wonder if Infinity Ward should have stuck to their guns and just made a sequel that fixes every single thing that people hated about the original. It probably would have gotten a shitload of hate prior to launch, but Infinite Warfare surprised me so much, it surprised a lot of people. This is easily modern Infinity Ward's best game. It does share some of the same concepts as Ghost, but it's not Ghost 2. I could see a Ghost 2 where Hesh becomes the main protagonist and Logan along with Rourke becomes the new main antagonist. That could have been very interesting, having your own brother as the villain in the story and you have to fight against him. Ghost is not the absolute worst Call of Duty game of all time. Not even close. I've played so much worse, not just in this series, but in other franchises as well. Although maybe it's because I'm playing on the IW6S client as to why I like the game more than I used to, playing on keyboard and mouse with the highest quality textures and resolution. I think it's just the age-old cycle of a new Call of Duty game coming out, it's total trash, and then we retreat to the older games. I don't think Ghosts kickstarted the dark era of Call of Duty. I think that's an exaggeration, because people these days look back at the jetpack era of Call of Duty pretty fondly, myself included, especially Black Ops 3. I love Black Ops 3. But Infinity Ward's next game, Infinite Warfare, oh yeah, that game just blows it out of the water. I love Infinite Warfare. I think it's the most underrated game in the whole series. It definitely did not deserve the insurmountable amount of hate it received prior to its launch. Now that's another game I would really like to talk about. Hell, maybe even do a video about Resident Evil, since 2026 marks its 30th anniversary and I'm a mega hardcore fan of Resident Evil. Let me know if you would like to see me make a video about that. I apologize that there has been so much time in between the Black Ops 4 video and this one. I wanted to get this video out sooner, but I completely underestimated just how absolutely gigantic of a project this ended up being. It was honestly pretty daunting. Ghost is merely a relic of the past, very much overshadowed by its peers. But for all you Ghost lovers out there, it's not completely forgotten about. To be forgotten is a fate worse than death. For all of its glaring issues, there are still moments where it does get to shine. I should be thanking Vince Zampella, Jason West, and Mark Rubin for pretty much defining my childhood, because without them we would have never gotten so many amazing shooter games that owe it to their contributions in the industry. These three, along with the incredible talent at Infinity Ward, helped shape the modern first-person shooter as we know it today. A lot of games coming out today would not even exist otherwise. This video is dedicated to the memory of Vince Zampella. May he forever rest in peace.